world of The Sopranos is marked by danger.
The angel of death hovers over everyone on the show.
Fear.
He doesn't like to be out in the press, and it makes him very uncomfortable.
Tragedy.
She ended up becoming paralyzed from the waist down.
And scandal.
You got some big lessons on the price of fame. If you screw up, everyone's going to know about it.
And that's just what goes on behind the scenes. In the next 2 hours, we'll infiltrate the mob to get an inside look at TV's most notorious crime boss.
You couldn't walk 10 feet without people screaming in New York, "Tony! Oh, hey, Tony!"
And his motley crew of wise guys.
Anybody can be shot, strangled, thrown in the ocean. It takes a real man to go on the toilet.
These guys are outlaws, and there's something sexy about that.
You think you know about the real lives of these Jersey good fellas? Forget about it. This is the story of The Sopranos, the true Hollywood story. Avish.
The dream of being one of from life's ambition was to be a star. Covers the public scandal.
Al Capone, Lucky Luciano, Sammy the Bull, and John Gotti. They're not your typical heroes, but gangsters have always fascinated America, and Hollywood has enjoyed a long love affair with the mob. From The Godfather to Goodfellas, crime is definitely paid on film, and paid big.
Society loves its bad boys, even though it doesn't tolerate their behavior. There's some kind of admiration or curiosity about them.
From the early days of talkies, movies about the mob's dark dealings left audiences wanting more. But television was slow to catch on. The small screen always showed the cop side of the story, until 1999 when a new kind of TV don showed up on the tube. Tony Soprano, a hitman with a heart.
Tony can be charming and lovable and cuddly and affable and then go out and, commit a heinous murder.
From its debut, The Sopranos, a drama about a New Jersey crime family, was an instant mob hit. Audiences were hooked, critics raved, and even real-life mafiosos gave the series 2 blocks up.
It has the intrigue of the mafia that people love in the mafia movies, and the kind of intrigue in the families and the business and the backstabbing and what's going on, and yet it also has a very human side to it.
Despite Tony's loyal following, the undisputed boss of The Sopranos was writer-producer David Chase.
David Chase is a Jersey guy. He grew up in Caldwell, and he started out in television on the Rockford Files, and then he was on Northern Exposure and I'll Fly Away and a few other things.
Veteran producer Stephen J. Cannell worked with Chase on the Rockford Files.
He was like kind of kicking around and writing pilots or movies that didn't get shot, and then he'd go to work for somebody else.
And eventually he started to get bored with the way TV was done, and he wanted to do something a little different. And he had an unusual relationship with his mother, and he wanted to find a way to work that into a show.
And my wife would say to me, someday you really should write about you and your mother as a character. And I thought, well, who would be interested in hearing about a New Jersey housewife? And who would be interested in hearing, a story about a TV producer and his mother? But then at some point I just got the idea that maybe if it was a mobster, it would be more commercial.
A mobster who could not handle his mother was a new twist. Film director Peter Bogdanovich was a Sopranos fan from the start.
That was sort of the beginning of The Sopranos. The idea that this kind of mother would affect a mafioso, small-time mafioso, so badly that he has to go to a psychiatrist.
The whole idea that David had for the show was to take the Godfather genre and hold it up to the light of reality. Well, what would it really be like if if you had a family and you had all these pressures on you and you were trying to be the Godfather?
In 1996, Chase put pen to paper to write his pilot script. Tony Soprano couldn't trust his mother, his kids were driving him nuts, and the cops were trying to break up his crime family. No wonder this Godfather was having panic attacks and his shrink put him on Prozac.
David Chase shopped it around to all the networks. None of them cared about it. None of them liked it.
Nobody got it. He wrote the script, and they wanted, they wanted younger, hot Italians. They didn't want old, fat, 50-year-old guys that take Prozac, And David just was very depressed about it.
And the feeling was that an actual mobster who murders people wasn't a good idea to put on the air. The violence of it would be pretty extreme for television. So he went to HBO, which was much more open to alternative scenarios.
The cable network took a chance on the edgy script. Execs bought The Sopranos pilot, but worried that viewers would think the show was about opera singers.
HBO threw around a lot of different titles before The Sopranos was accepted as it. You know, they thought maybe Family Guy, Red Sauce, other titles were thrown around. They were even thinking about Made in New Jersey.
Chase won the battle for his show title. Then, he needed to find a group of actors who could bring the mob into America's living rooms. In the spring of '97, casting began on the pilot. First priority, Tony Soprano, the mafia kingpin in the midst of a midlife crisis. The auditions attracted dozens of hopefuls, including actor David Proval, formerly of TV's Picket Fences.
They had me in for Tony Soprano. And I went and I read for David and HBO. They had called me back and I read again. And then I had heard that they really love what you did, but you're too physically on the nose. You look too right. And they were right. I mean, I don't look like the guy who lives next door.
But 35-year-old James Gandolfini did. A Rutgers University graduate, Gandolfini's accent and pedigree made him perfect for the part.
James Gandolfini is actually from New Jersey. He started out as a bouncer at a Manhattan nightclub and then turned to acting.
He got a start in theater. His stage debut was in A Streetcar Named Desire on Broadway in '92 with Alec Baldwin and Jessica Lange. You know, this was his first major TV role.
He was pretty much an unknown when Chase cast him in the part, which was a good thing because he didn't bring any baggage with him.
What Gandolfini brought was a solid interpretation of a mobster who was cracking up.
It was a brilliant choice because Gandolfini, on the face of it, is not sympathetic. Beneath all the savagery on the front, there's an understandable, albeit fractured, human being under there.
For Tony's better half, producers needed an actress who could play a brass Jersey housewife. Chase approached 42-year-old Lorraine Bracco.
They wanted to meet me for Carmela, which is Tony Soprano's wife. And I didn't want to play Carmela because I had already played Karen Hill in Goodfellas, and I felt that I couldn't really do it any better.
A native of Long Island, Bracco became a fashion cover girl at age 19 after moving to France in 1974. 10 years later, she returned to the States to give acting a shot. Bracco delivered her breakthrough performance and earned an Oscar nomination as a mafia wife in the movie Goodfellas. When David Chase came calling in 1997, Bracco set her sights on a different role.
I felt that Jennifer Melfi was a real challenge for me. This was absolutely the opposite of everything that I've ever done. And I convinced David to meet me for the doctor role.
Lorraine modeled Dr. Melfi after her own therapist.
I made her a lonely, little repressed, a very, very bright, smart, into her work. Probably, for me, very successful in her work, not very successful in her private life.
Chase was sold, and Bracco won the job. The role of Carmela Soprano went to another Long Island native, 34-year-old Edie Falco.
She's a wife and mother in the suburbs. She's got 2 young kids, a little bit obnoxious, a husband who she loves, but she knows is always up to something, just so happens to be the mob. It's hard to play that, you know, other than just being the stereotypical big-haired, long-nailed chick.
For Falco, The Sopranos was the opportunity of a lifetime.
She's not the most glamorous, and she certainly wasn't the most experienced actress, but this is a woman who has really paid her dues.
She struggled doing various small roles, and in between that she worked as a waitress. She had, you know, sort of these lousy jobs in Manhattan where she was struggling to make it big.
The pressure caused Edie to suffer crippling panic attacks. After years of therapy, Falco got her anxiety under control, and by the mid-90s, she was landing TV roles.
She'd had small parts on Homicide, and she was a prison guard on Oz, which was a good thing because that was on HBO, and the HBO executives kept her in mind when they were casting The Sopranos.
One of the biggest challenges for David Chase was filling the part of Livia, the matriarch of the family and the character who inspired him to write The Sopranos.
David's mother's name was Livia. Coincidentally, it's the name of the Empress Livia under a couple of Caesars, actually, in the 1st century, who was quite an evil lady, poisoned most of her family. Well, and so did Livia, David Chase's character and mother, evidently, according to what David tells me.
Still, Chase didn't want the portrayal of Livia to be over the top, and he was impressed by the subtle approach taken by 69-year-old veteran Nancy Marchand.
Nancy Marchand is best known for playing Mrs. Pynchon on Lou Grant. She was the kindly, very sophisticated publisher of the newspaper, which is about as far as you can get from Livia Soprano as possible.
To round out the family, Chase was set on finding two teenagers who could make The Sopranos seem as suburban as strip malls and swimming pools. 16-year-old Jamie Lynn Sigler didn't have TV experience, but she had been performing all her life.
I started dancing when I was 3 years old, started singing lessons when I was 7, and did tons of community theater, even did a tour when I was 12 of It's a Wonderful Life. And it's just, that was my life, as a musical theater.
Jamie nailed the audition and got the job as the family's rebellious daughter, Meadow.
She's basically your normal teenager going through, you know, experimenting with drugs and applying to colleges and boyfriends and this and that, but then, you know, she comes home and her dad's the Don of the Mafia, so it's a little different.
The role of Tony's troubled son, Anthony Soprano Jr., went to 12-year-old Robert Eiler, who was eagerly waiting for his big break.
I was going on like 6 or 7 auditions a week, and I was getting commercials. It was just like a big shock from going to doing like 2 or 3 commercials a year to all of a sudden I'm in like a TV show. It was awesome though.
Dad, Mom, kids, and Grandma. The American TV family had come a long way from the Cleavers. In this house, the father was no role model. Tony Soprano was handier with a semi-automatic than a lawnmower. Coming up, the pressure consumes one star.
She became what she describes as an exercise bulimic.
And later,
they took him out on the boat, and they, made him sleep with the fishes, you know?
in the spring of 1997, HBO gave writer-producer David Chase the green light to produce an edgy pilot about a New Jersey mob family. The Sopranos was no ordinary crime show, and the cast was not a typical Hollywood lineup. For Chase, a rap sheet was just as important as a resume. Chase and HBO execs were determined to push the envelope with The Sopranos. The pilot script was gritty, daring, and violent. Unknowns and newcomers were hired for the leading roles. Then producers searched for a supporting cast that could match the show's dark reality. David Chase found the real deal in 55-year-old ex-con turned actor Tony Sirico. Sirico's rap sheet boasted 28 arrests, including armed robbery and 5 years in prison. While he was behind bars, a traveling theater group of ex-cons inspired Tony.
When he got out of prison, he decided he'd rather play a mobster on TV than be one. So he's kept to the straight and narrow for a good quarter of a century and played a lot of tough guy parts in movies.
In 1997, Sirico got a steady gig in organized crime, but this time he was legit. Chase cast the one-time hood as Paulie Walnuts Galtieri, a member of Tony Soprano's inner circle.
The thing with Paulie is everyone's always, wondering who he's going to kill, and he's very temperamental.
Sirico wasn't the only cast member recruited from the Garden State. Chase turned to 51-year-old Jersey boy Vincent Pastore to play Salvatore Big Pussy Pompancero.
Big Pussy is sort of the confidant for Tony, and I think there's such an authentic bond that you sort of see between them, but also the tension.
Pastore was in the entertainment business, but he was not on stage. He owned a nightclub in New Rochelle, New York called Crazy Horse. A couple of bar regulars urged him to give acting a shot.
He was encouraged by Matt and Kevin Dillon to become an actor. He was in his 40s at that time. Seemed to work out pretty good for him because he got a bunch of early mob roles.
Not everybody in the supporting cast was unknown. Rock fans recognized Little Stevie Van Zandt.
Steve Van Zandt was not an actor. He played guitar for Bruce Springsteen. He was a Jersey icon, but he'd never really acted before. David Chase just liked the way that Van Zandt looked on the E Street Band album covers.
As far as David Chase was concerned, Van Zandt's cool style qualified him for an audition. Initially, Van Zandt read for the part of Tony Soprano, but he ended up cast as Silvio Dante, owner of the Bada Bing Club.
People would ask, weren't you scared, if it was Little Steven walking on that set, yeah, But Silvio Dante walked on that set, you see? And he's basically fearless, and so when I walked out of the trailer as him, I wasn't afraid of anything.
Despite the confidence of his new cast members, Chase was not willing to gamble entirely on amateurs. 31-year-old Michael Imperioli was no stranger to mob drama. The actor played a young gopher in Goodfellas. Chase tapped Imperioli as hothead Christopher Moltisanti.
He's a nephew of Tony, and he's very impulsive and ambitious and rash, so often he takes the law into his own hands rather than getting advice from Tony, and things sometimes backfire.
Joining Imperioli was another actor with some mob credits. Dominic Chianese appeared as the double-crossing gangster Johnny Oler in the 1974 movie The Godfather Part 2. Chase brought Chianese aboard as Junior Soprano. Tony's uncle, boss, and sometime rival.
Junior's he's a sweetheart. I mean, he's just a nice guy. He's a family man. And sometimes he's a little short-tempered.
To soften the rough edges of his macho supporting cast, Chase added Drea De Matteo to the mix. The 24-year-old actress spent years trying to lose her thick New York accent. Fortunately, she didn't succeed.
Drea De Matteo likes to tell the story that she was cast because of a word, there was one word that she'd said, and she added like 9 syllables to like a 1-syllable word. And that apparently is what nailed it for her.
They always thought I was with my mom.
It's funny because she's like this sort of Lower East Side rock chick, and here she is playing this suburban, you know, Versace-wearing mess.
The producers liked Drea so much that they gave her character, Adriana La Cerva, a richer storyline.
They just liked her so much they said, well, let's keep you around. We need to give Christopher a girlfriend. And they gave her a makeover and put her in leopard prints, and suddenly she was a regular character on the show.
With his cast in place, Chase was ready to see his script come to life. And who better to step behind the camera and shout action than Chase himself?
I thought that, like most pilots, it wouldn't get bought, and that my whole deal was to write and direct an hour pilot so I'd have something to show so I could finally get to do a movie. I'd have a sample.
In August 1997, filming began.
I was so overwhelmed in the beginning because I'd never done TV before. And honest to God, I was just trying to remember where I was going and what I was saying. And these people took me along through it. I don't even know if they know it. But I just had to look at them and follow them, and they would take me through the scenes.
We did the pilot, and then everybody just got sent home and waited for like a while to hear if we were going to get picked up. If we weren't going to get picked up, you know, nobody had a clue. So that was a scary time.
I didn't think it would get picked up as a series just because I liked it. I thought it was great, but it just seemed like it was, you know, but there wasn't really anything like that had succeeded on TV. So it's like, this is almost, you know, too like different.
But the executives at HBO were wild about the show. In November, the network ordered up a full season of The Sopranos. Shocked, the producer and his writing team began plotting out 12 more episodes. The pressure of the new gig was intense for cast member Jamie Lynn Sigler. The 17-year-old actress began working out her personal and professional anxieties before the camera started rolling.
After they shot the pilot, she became what she describes as an exercise bulimic. She began to work out 4 hours a day. She would do a dance class 7 days of the week, and she would just try to burn off every last calorie she ate, and she became incredibly skinny.
You know, she's fought a lot of demons with her self-esteem and her body image.
On June 18, 1998, the cast returned to the set in Long Island City. For the ensemble of relatively unknown actors, this series was an ideal showcase. But when David Chase saw Jamie Lynn Sigler, he was not pleased. Sigler was extremely thin.
He needed someone who looked the part. He didn't need someone who looked like a Hollywood actress. He needed someone who looked like she could be a suburban teenager in New Jersey.
The change in Sigler's appearance was so drastic that Chase considered holding new auditions to recast Meadow.
That's when he had a talk with Jamie Lynn, and they worked it out. Jamie Lynn sought out help. She ended up getting counseling, seeing a psychiatrist, and has resolved her eating issues.
With her problem under control, Sigler concentrated on her character.
Jamie Lynn was very grateful about this. She's talked about how fantastic it was that David Chase is one of the few people in Hollywood who would say to an actress, you need to put on weight, not lose weight.
The actors had to look right, and so did the show's exterior shots. David Chase was determined to set his series in the suburbs where he grew up.
He was adamant about wanting to shoot it in New Jersey. I heard one of the location people call it scenically ugly, which I think is really kind of funny. I think that kind of crystallizes everything I'd been looking at as a child growing up there.
Audiences today are very sophisticated, and they can tell a backlot or, you know, Canada from a real thing, and there are parts of New Jersey that don't look like any place else in the country, and because of that, The Sopranos looks very specific.
David Chase has managed to make New Jersey cool, which is something very, very few people have ever been able to do. I don't even think Bruce Springsteen was able to do that. The Sopranos has really put this place on the map.
That's where we belong. That's where The Sopranos belong in New Jersey.
Getting the right look was not cheap. The Sopranos cost more than $2 million per episode, making the series one of the most expensive shows on television. While the high cost of production was no secret, the storylines were kept under tight wraps.
We get our scripts like days before we start filming. They're very strict, and it's very confidential, everything. We get like We sign waivers and we have numbers on the top of our script pages. We're on lockdown.
In November 1998, shooting was completed on the first season of The Sopranos. 2 months later, on Sunday night, January 10th, the cast and crew showed up for a small premiere party at John's Pizzeria in Greenwich Village.
When the show started, it wasn't this big glamorous Hollywood event. I mean, they were just hanging out in a pizza joint watching the opening of the show.
At 9 p.m., opposite The X-Files in 2020, the pilot episode of The Sopranos debuted on HBO. America met a family unlike any they had seen on TV before.
The Sopranos is the cultural phenomenon. It's sort of a juggernaut, you know, wrapped in spaghetti and meatballs.
The critical response was immediate.
The New York Times called it the most important cultural event of the last 25 years. I wouldn't disagree. I mean, there's a level of reality and expertise and kind of visceral attraction that The Sopranos provides that one hasn't had with television and most films. So I think it, as they say, raised the bar.
The Sopranos is as much about family life and suburbia as it is about the mafia. I think it just happens to be about gangsters.
2 million viewers watched the premiere. For an HBO original series, that was a big audience. Critical buzz and word of mouth quickly made hits out of Tony and his crew of cold-blooded killers.
I was amazed at the response. I don't think any of us thought that many people would watch the show in the beginning. It was a bunch of lunatics from New Jersey, and apparently we hit some kind of chord.
This cast of pretty much anonymous people became famous. They really tried hard to retain their privacy.
But America wanted to know more about the mafiosos next door, and women simply wanted Tony.
James Gandolfini is really hot. I mean, I think most viewers, you know, whether they want to admit it or not, agree that there is an animal magnetism about him. I think it makes perfect sense that people will be drawn to his power and his bluster and his bravado, and also his vulnerability.
I think there's a playful, boyish quality about him that combines with that sort of big, bearish guy that women seem to go for.
He's very charismatic. He gets to play scenes with a lot of women and be sort of forward with them, and I think some of the power and the sexual allure of the character got transferred to him.
He's an incredibly reluctant sex symbol. But then you dig a little deeper and you find out that he was, you know, voted best looking in his senior class in high school. It's just a big mistake that, you know, people think that you have to have all your hair and be thin to be a sex symbol. Remember that.
Gandolfini was not ready for the side effects of his surprising success.
I think he's shy. A lot of actors, you know, they're great when someone gives them the lines, but when nobody's giving them the lines, they're really not confident in what they say.
I've asked people about James Gandolfini's reluctance to talk to the press, and that he doesn't think he sounds as intelligent as he really is.
I'm not good at this, man. I'm not good. I gotta go.
While James Gandolfini feared the spotlight, some Sopranos cast members feared for their lives. Coming up,
I'm not usually bitch slapped around by somebody and made to cry.
By 1999, James Gandolfini was a made man. Starring in The Sopranos turned the unknown actor into a reluctant sex symbol. But Gandolfini was not the only cast member who was struggling to avoid the spotlight. After finishing their first season on The Sopranos, the cast tried to keep a low profile during the spring of 1999.
They didn't want to have the media asking them about their personal lives. They didn't want to have media finding out where they lived, what they liked to eat. They seemed to find it irrelevant to putting out this fantastic show.
But the actors at the center of the popular show could not stay out of the public eye. Their private soap operas often rivaled juicy scripts. For actress Lorraine Bracco, making the tabloids was nothing new.
Lorraine Bracco's personal drama has been going on for about a decade now. It's been followed very closely in the New York papers.
Bracco's troubles began in 1990 when she was caught in the middle of a love triangle with two prominent actors, Harvey Keitel and Edward James Olmos. The actress was married to Keitel and they had a young daughter. But the relationship turned sour when Bracco co-starred with Olmos in the film Talent for the Game.
Harvey Keitel, he alleges that Lorraine was cheating on him with Edward James Olmos.
Bracco denied she was unfaithful. Soon after, Lorraine and Harvey divorced, and in January 1994, she married Olmos. Keitel and Bracco got into a vicious custody fight over their daughter.
Harvey didn't want their daughter around Edward James Olmos. He thought Edward James Olmos was the scum of the earth. They had a very public battle in court. Lorraine would do things like give Harvey the finger in court. She would snarl at him.
She went public and just said that Harvey Keitel was motivated by, quote, jealousy and hate.
In 1996, after 2 years of courtroom wars, a judge awarded Bracco temporary custody of the child.
The ironic thing about the whole Edward James Olmos, Lorraine Bracco, Harvey Keitel feud is that the feud came to a natural end, not because one side really won, but because Lorraine and Edward finally divorced, ending any kind of custody battle at all.
By June of 1999, a steady job on a successful new series could not pull Lorraine out of debt.
It was exhausting emotionally and financially, almost ruined her.
She had to file for bankruptcy during the run of The Sopranos because she had spent so much money on legal proceedings.
Meanwhile, James Gandolfini was also scrambling to avoid the media blitz. That spring, the actor managed to dodge the press and marry his longtime girlfriend, Hollywood publicist Marcy Wodarski, in a small private ceremony. Fans and reporters alike wanted to know more about the TV mobster's love life, but Gandolfini remained tight-lipped.
Gandolfini has made it no mystery that he is not a fan of the media. He's sort of that classic actor who believes the less you know about me, the more believable I can be on camera.
In June 1999, the cast of The Sopranos began taping their second season. On screen, the mob boss continued to battle his manipulative mother, Livia. Off-screen, actress Nancy Marchand was waging a war of her own against lung cancer and emphysema.
She was sick for her entire time on the show, and you didn't see a lot of her in the second season because she was getting worse.
Livia was going to die during the first season, but Nancy was so fantastic on the show, and because she was so sick by the time they were shooting, it just seemed somehow, you know, too cruel to kill off the character when the woman playing it was so ill, and she was so great. So they wound up keeping her on.
Marchand did not have to carry the whole load by herself. Series creator David Chase tossed another actress into the mix. Ada Turturro took the role as Tony's con artist's sister.
Janice has a lot of sides, you know? I mean, you never know sometimes where she's coming from. She definitely is her mother's daughter, and she's a soprano.
And who better to romance the sister of a mob boss than his arch-rival? Brooklyn-born actor David Proval joined the cast as Richie Aprile. Although he originally auditioned for the part of Tony Soprano, Proval wound up playing Tony's nemesis.
You know, kind of Tom and Jerry, little guy who's scares the big giant. So, or at least threatened by it. I don't think he was ever scared.
In Proval's debut episode, his character beats a man with a chair and a coffee pot, then crushes him under his SUV.
Yeah, what an entrance. What an entrance. And the night I saw that scene, I turned to the person to my right and I said, that guy needs help. Because it was kind of unrecognizable.
Actor Robert Patrick also took a leap into new dramatic territory. He landed the role of David Scatino, a compulsive gambler who gets in hock to the mob. Patrick was best known for his portrayal of a killing machine in the movie Terminator 2. But Robert learned that a killer cyborg was no match for a mafia chief.
Gandolfini literally started picking me up and grabbing me and throwing me around. It was really interesting to get this role. It's just stuff that I've never done before. You know, I'm not usually bitch slapped around by somebody and made to cry, and usually I fight back. The character is just so pathetic that this addiction is that bad, and he can't see it.
For some new cast members, the Soprano set was like returning to an old neighborhood. Gian Fiore portrayed Gigi Sestone, one of Tony's henchmen.
It was the greatest gig really ever because it was a bunch of guys about the same age, mostly Italian, which was fun. Very similar background, similar heritage, and all of a sudden, you get to hang around with these people 16 hours a day.
Louis Lombardi played FBI agent Skip Lipari.
You know, like a little social club on the set, you know? It's a good environment because those guys are all real people. You know, they're all real guys. It isn't like Hollywood show, it's more of a New York real show.
I always felt like I was going to the corner in Brooklyn and seeing if the guys were hanging out. And if the guys are hanging out, great. Then we'll stand and laugh and schmooze and talk, and then maybe we'll have to go, the camera's here, but we'll go in front of the cameras and then we'll get back to what's important, all the schmoozing and talking.
Despite the friendly atmosphere on the set, the mood got heavy during season 2. The scripts became more violent and downright gory.
Everybody's there taking it very, very serious. There's not a lot of f***ing around with that stuff.
They had me kill Parisi. They rig up this whole thing. It was pretty amazing. It looked like a fire extinguisher. The gush of blood off the windshield, and it was very real looking. I mean, it was as close as you can come to killing someone without killing them. Because they put the bullet hole in his head, and they gushed that blood, held the gun out there. And you do get kind of a, ooh, what would this be like to really do this? God, this is close.
The violence is amazing to watch, and they do a really, really good job with it because they don't try to glorify it other than what it is, the brutality of what it is.
The graphic violence was difficult for everyone on the set.
Actors reach in for that kind of rage, and then rap, and you're like, why am I dazed here? Why can't I sleep? Why can't I? Oh, because you just finagled with your psyche in a way that you shouldn't mess with. It's not a healthy thing to act.
James Gandolfini had his own way of dealing with the show's gruesome demands.
His preparation for a scene, and he's a big guy, would be sometimes, you know, he'd do stuff like this, or bark like a dog, or make, you know, people do crazy things to prepare for a scene.
Sexual encounters on The Sopranos were also intense, especially when Tony's sister was involved.
Janice has had a lot of very strange sex. One of them was actually interrupted by her mother coming down the stairs in one of those motorized chairs, which may have been overall the creepiest scene in the history of television.
The show gives us something revolutionary. It actually shows us fat people having sex, which we never would see before. I mean, that is kind of the last, you know, realm of, you know, or the last envelope to be pushed.
When the script called for kinky sex at gunpoint between Janice and Richie, the cast wondered if producer David Chase had gone too far.
Aida Turturro said she wasn't really very comfortable with that whole thing.
I didn't like the scene. I was honest and went to David and told him that I thought it was out of character. Richie's an old school guy, and this was his fiancée, and he wouldn't be involved in aberrant sexuality. What David said was, I'm not going to turn this show into a politically correct show for David Provo.
They did the scene, and probably their level of discomfort added to the power of it.
David Chase was pushing The Sopranos into dark and dangerous corners, places where television rarely went. Sooner or later, Chase was bound to push too far and too hard. Coming up, the dangers on the set.
And every week it's like, did you see the script yet? We're more paranoid than real gangsters.
By the summer of 1999, production on the second season of The Sopranos was in full swing. The TV gangsters struggled with the graphic scenes, but sex and violence were not the only problems keeping the actors up at night. Working on a show about the mob posed some real concerns for the actors. The cast never knew when their character might get whacked. Federico Castelluccio played Furio Giunta, Tony's lieutenant from Italy.
Everybody kind of panics, you know. It's nerve-wracking. Even though we do have contracts, it is a mob show. You have to realize that, and people do die.
I was having a good time, but there were dark clouds on the horizon. You know, people died in the show. And every week it's like, did you see the script yet? We're more paranoid than real gangsters.
The difficult task of deciding who lived and who got hit was left up to executive producer David Chase. He delivered the bad news to actor David Proval, who met his sudden demise in a startling plot twist near the end of season 2.
David called me a couple of times and said, it's a very, very difficult decision. He wasn't sure whether he was doing the right thing.
Proval's popularity with Sopranos fans couldn't save his character, Richie Aprile, from Tony's wrath.
They took him into the pork shop and, as they say, made mincemeat of him. Tony now owns a franchise of what's called Richie Burgers. Yeah, you get Richie Burger, little Italian bread.
The body count got higher in the season cap when Big Pussy suddenly disappeared.
They took him out on the boat, and they you know, made him sleep with the fishes, you know?
Fans were shocked, and so were cast members.
That's what David Chase says, you know. The angel of death hovers over everyone on the show.
Dying on the series was a somber experience for the tight-knit ensemble.
you get to be friends and you feel badly. And I'm sure for Vinny Pastore it was even 10 times as much because he had been there longer. It does, it becomes emotional.
When you go, it's all hugs and a pat on the back, and man, we lost another man today.
It's a rare thing in television for major characters and beloved characters to be knocked off. But The Sopranos is not afraid to whack a popular character. And we get over it. You just hope the actors' careers get over it.
One cast member did not have to worry about losing his job. For James Gandolfini, life was never better. In the summer of '99, Gandolfini and his wife Marcy welcomed a new member into their own family.
James Gandolfini and Marcy gave birth to their son, but no one would really know that the event happened because he never spoke about it publicly. And he treated the whole occasion, as he has everything else in his personal life, pretty much with silence.
Execs at HBO, however, were anything but silent about The Sopranos. That summer, HBO created more buzz for the show by repeating the first season of the series.
It developed a cult following almost immediately. And it was like, it was the thing to watch, sort of, everybody was talking about it.
Look at the show. They're all 40 to 50-year-old men. None of them are really good looking. And the show's the biggest show on TV.
Sopranos fever was at an all-time high, and the second season had not even hit the air. On the streets of New York, cast members were besieged by fans.
Some people had a tough time differentiating between the actor and the character. They want you to be in the mafia. They want it to be the real Sopranos. And some of them, I mean, you know, they would get a little carried away.
Most fans, I think they when they meet me, they expect me to be exactly like Christopher, like his personality, and they're usually like disappointed because they're like, oh, you're very low key, or so, you know. He's not real, you know. He's a he's a figment of the imagination.
James Gandolfini was the main attraction anywhere he went.
We had gone out for lunch, and he couldn't walk 10 feet without people screaming in New York, Tony! Oh, hey, Tony! We crossed the street, truck drivers stopped to let him, and I'm not exaggerating.
They totally think like Tony Soprano is my dad. It's like, so it's like when your dad is in the mob, like, is that cool? Like, can you buy a lot of things? And I'm like, dude, I don't know. It's like, my dad is an engineer.
The reruns of The Sopranos attracted a whole new legion of viewers, but not everyone liked what they saw. Director of The Sons of Italy, Donna De Sanctis.
The problem that Italian Americans and the Order Sons of Italy has with The Sopranos is the manner in which the show uses Italian American values, our traditions, our customs, and even our religion in a context that's really despicable.
They feel that the show defames them, it perpetuates all the stereotypes that all Italian Americans are involved in crime in some way.
Ted Grippo is the chairman of the American Italian Defense Association.
Italian Americans are spoken of as having criminal in their genes. Criminal activities come from their genes. They're born with it. There are statements like that in the various shows. We object to that very seriously.
The cast had a different opinion.
It's just TV. I mean, and that's why it's there. You know, it's like if TV was exactly like real life, nobody would watch it. It's like people tune in to TV to see something different. Something that's, you know, sometimes not going on in real life. And it's like nobody watches that show and now all of a sudden doesn't like Italian people.
I'm very proud of my heritage. There are no gangsters in my family. They went to college. I'm glad they make these movies and TV shows. I like them. And if I wasn't in them, I'd still go watch them anyway.
In early September 1999, the conflict reached a boiling point. Italian-American groups planned to protest in front of HBO's New York City headquarters. Mayor Rudy Giuliani arranged for the two sides to air their differences.
At these meetings, we bring to them story ideas about Italian Americans in interesting situations removed from a mafia context. We bring them ideas about Italian American war heroes, founders of industry, documentaries that can be done. They always listen to us, they always smile politely, and then we see the reruns of The Sopranos.
Italian Americans were not handing out any honors to The Sopranos, but Hollywood was a different story. On September 12th, David Chase's New Jersey crime family went to the Emmys. The series garnered 16 nominations, the most for any show that year. At the end of the night, The Sopranos walked away with 4 Emmys, including awards for writing, editing, and casting.
We didn't expect people to actually watch the show. We thought it was, when we were making it, we thought it was just too out there and that people wouldn't like the people. There's so much about likability these days, and you know, Gandolfini and all those people are really likable, as it turns out, but we weren't sure at the time.
Edie Falco grabbed the trophy for Best Actress in a Dramatic Series.
I've been acting forever and ever, you know, like 15 years, I guess, since I got out of school, something like that. And this last year or so, I've been recognized on the street all the time, which I guess on some level is a measure of how many people you're reaching. And that aspect in and of itself, it does change your life pretty dramatically.
When she showed up at work the next day, Gandolfini had filled Edie Falco's trailer filled with balloons, so that when she went to get in, there was balloons everywhere. She couldn't get in her trailer.
After the Emmys, The Sopranos earned a more dubious honor. The hit show inspired an adult movie called The Sopranos.
Having a porno named after your show is sort of the ultimate in flattery.
Oh, I think that you're just very sexy when you're counting all that money.
I mean, you really are a cultural icon if you are a porn title or a Trivial Pursuit question or, you know, something along those lines. You sort of have made it into the culture. And certainly The Sopranos has done just that.
The show also won the respect of real-life mobsters. In December, the FBI released surveillance tapes in which reputed members of New Jersey's DeCavalcante crime family raved about Tony and his band of good fellas.
They were actually recorded talking to each other about how realistic the show was.
What's this f***ing thing, Sopranos? What the f*** it is? You never watched it? That's supposed to be up. You're in there. Look in there. Yeah. What'd they say?
Watch that guy, they said. Watch that guy. Every show you watch, more and more you pick up somebody, every show. You know where it's made? It's made right on 3rd Avenue in Central, in the bookstore. Yeah, there's the bookstore. No, they do it. It's made in Jersey, right? Yeah. Is this supposed to be it? Not Sacco. Sacco's. No, that's not Sacco's. Oh, it's supposed to be Sacco's. Is it? Yeah, it's supposed to be Sacco's. They all sit outside the bookstore. Yeah, they do. You ever watch that route? I caught it one night. They have fun. What characters? Yeah, it is. They found these guys great actors.
It really confirmed what everyone thought, that hey, David Chase really knows a lot about this mob family business.
Some mobsters really like the show. I've also heard that others are a little upset about it because it gives away some of their best tricks. The HMO scam that they ran in the pilot, I remember reading an interview where a mobster said, hey, wait a minute, we're doing this and this is giving it away and now law enforcement will know to look for it.
While a few real thugs worried about having their scams and secrets exposed, the cast grew anxious as the second season premiere approached.
What has happened around The Sopranos, I don't understand. I mean, the chaos and the phenomenon that has become this show, I'm obviously far too close to it to really understand it, you know? But as far as I'm concerned, it's been all like this sort of tornado that's gone on around the actual work.
There's pressure because critical acclaim was almost unanimous last year. We all feel like there's going to be some people that are going to be gunning for us, you know, that are going to want to, you know, tear us down a little bit and knock us down to size.
The Sopranos cast couldn't count on their fans to stay loyal. They also couldn't predict what would happen to them when the cameras weren't rolling. Coming up, a mysterious illness threatens the life of one Soprano star.
She ended up becoming paralyzed from the waist down.
Even with the first season charmed by Emmy wins, critical acclaim, and devoted support from HBO, the pressure was on the cast and crew of The Sopranos. They had to prove their spectacular rookie year was no fluke. On January 16, 2000, the second season of The Sopranos debuted. HBO rented out the Ziegfeld Theater for the premiere party.
People with more credits and more years in the business than me were going, this is like a movie premiere. Bigger than a movie. It's bigger than any movie. I mean, Ziegfeld, lights going, and I mean, really amazing, amazing phenom.
The first time I sensed the frenzy was that night of the second season screening, and Michael Imperio looked at me and said to me, "Do you feel like the Beatles?" And I said, "This is very strange."
It all seems like it went so fast from shooting the pilot, and we weren't sure if it was going to get picked up to now. I'm so overwhelmed, and I really need to just sit down and realize what's going on. And we don't realize, I mean, on the set, we don't realize that it's such a big phenomenon as it is. You know, we're just like, oh, people like the show.
The Hollywood foreign press liked the series too. On January 23rd, The Sopranos took home Golden Globe Awards for Best Actor, Best Actress, and Best Dramatic Series.
I love that people have been so complimentary, and that's as long as we keep our eye on the ball there. The weight is only, you know, it's as important as you make it, you know what I mean? If you keep your perspective straight, I think we'll be all right. Is that bad?
No, that's good.
Oh, okay. Okay.
That was easy. Can we go now?
Bye-bye.
In front of the press, Gandolfini was as nervous as Tony Soprano testifying before a Senate subcommittee.
I'm doing it. I don't know. No, it's not that I hate it. It's something I don't think I'm very good at it, and I don't know. Help me.
James Gandolfini loves acting. He's a great actor. He wants to do it. He just doesn't feel comfortable with the rest of it. He'd rather be an actor and not a celebrity, which is very hard to do today.
James has always said to me, usually over a couple of drinks, John, I'm just a fat ball who got lucky. The demands are tremendous. They're adjusting to the fame.
Viewers began signing up for HBO just to see The Sopranos. The network pulled in 695,000 new subscribers after the second season premiere. New cast members became overnight stars.
It's the weirdest thing I've ever seen in the business with fan recognition. You know, they really believe that they know you.
Walking down the street, hey, Davey Scatino, you know, hey, Tony's gonna break your legs, you know, it's that kind of thing.
People stop me on the street and go, hey, you're that creepy guy who brought down pussy. And I'm like, the guy beat his wife, he has got caught selling heroin, hammers guys on the head with a hammer, and I'm the bad guy for arresting this guy. People go crazy, and I sit there and go, I'm wondering about our society here, you know?
Not all the news was good. In June of 2000, Nancy Marchand, who played Livia Soprano, died of complications due to lung cancer and emphysema. Her death came on June 18th, one day before her 72nd birthday.
She was strong. She was courageous. She never complained. Of course, we all knew she was ill for a long time from the beginning, and we knew that there would be a time when this would come.
I used to carry her where she breathed it out of the containers with the air in them. Yeah, she was family. You know, and there's nothing we wouldn't do for her.
She meant so much to the show. She meant a lot to American television, film, and theater. And she's somebody we all admired, so it's a great loss.
She knew her craft, and she taught us a lot.
It is a little unreal to me, the idea that she won't be there when we have our first read-through. We're going to get there and she's not going to be there, and I am not looking forward to that.
Marchand's death was especially hard on the man behind The Sopranos.
When Nancy Marchand died, it posed a real dilemma for David Chase. I mean, because here's a woman who was very, very central to the storyline.
They had to rewrite a whole lot of the third season because one of the big subplots was going to be Tony has to win back his mother's trust so that she won't testify against him in his RICO trial. And as it turns out, she died. They couldn't use that, and so they had to come up with new material.
Chase and his writing team buckled down and got to work. Meanwhile, cast members jumped on some big career opportunities during the show's hiatus. James Gandolfini headed to Vegas to film The Mexican opposite Brad Pitt and Julia Roberts.
When Julia came on, James, was her idea. I was thinking about another great actor, but James, as soon as she mentioned James Gandolfini, I was like, oh yeah, I mean, it's perfect.
Gandolfini shed 25 pounds to play Winston Baldry, a gay hitman with a sensitive side.
He just says that that's, finding love and happiness is all that matters, and the people that do find that, in the end, know they've had a satisfying life, even if they've only had it once.
During the shoot, James befriended Laura Somoza, assistant to director Gore Verbinski.
They always denied that there was a relationship, but there were a lot of rumors that there was. And in fact, when he did his next movie, The Last Castle with Robert Redford, it was reported that she showed up to the set and hung out with him, and he was still married at the time.
Jamie Lynn Sigler also used her time away from The Sopranos to hit the big screen. Sigler took a small part in the independent film Campfire Stories. But while shooting a scene in the New Jersey woods, she was bitten by a tick and became gravely ill.
She contracted Lyme disease pretty early on when Lyme disease was still not that well known. She ended up becoming paralyzed from the waist down.
It took doctors 7 days to diagnose Sigler's condition. Finally, Jamie Lynn began to recuperate with a regimen of antibiotics and physical therapy. Sigler made a full recovery and got ready to report back to work on The Sopranos. David Chase wanted to shake up his cast and bring in new faces for season 3. On July 22, 2000, the producers held an open casting call in Harrison, New Jersey.
And that's worked with us in the past. We've had a kind of a happy history of having little one-line parts that blossom into continuing roles. And it's great when it happens like that.
People in New Jersey love this show.
Soprano! Yay!
And when you give them a chance to actually be on the show, they're going to go for it. So people took days off from their jobs, and it was many, many more people than they expected.
Office manager Denise Barrino was among the hopefuls.
17,000 people showed up. It was just totally crazy. I mean, there was just people everywhere.
There were many more people than they'd expected, and they were teaming out in the streets, and they're going around corners, and they were everywhere. And finally, I don't think anyone was being unruly, but there were just so many people that the producers had to call the cops just to make sure nothing got out of hand.
The cops said, okay, enough. I mean, they shut everything. They shut the 280 down, they shut the Turnpike down, they shut down the Garden State Parkway. It's unbelievable.
A week later, David Chase made his final decision.
I got a phone call saying that I had the part.
Barrino landed the role of Ginny, the wife of New York boss Johnny Sack.
They were able to coax a great performance out of her.
And that's not just a walk-on part. She's been an important part of a couple of episodes, so that actually did bear a little fruit. And The Sopranos does a very good job of finding people who aren't really actors and making them into actors, and she's one of them.
For Denise Barrino, the small role on The Sopranos was the opportunity of a lifetime. But back at the production offices, Chase still had to figure out how to deal with the loss of a major cast member. Coming up, life after Livia.
There was something about how special Nancy Marchand was that it kind of seemed a little ghoulish.
And later, a brutal whacking shocks the cast.
You're just sitting there going, oh man, this is too much.
By the fall of 2002, 16 months passed without a new episode of The Sopranos airing on HBO.
Where's everybody?
Fans were impatient, and critics wondered if the reign of Tony Soprano had come to an end. On September 15, 2002, the long wait was finally over. The Sopranos cast convened at Radio City Music Hall in New York to kick off the 4th season.
People have been asking me all year, when are you guys coming back? People, they're going to forget about you guys if you don't hurry up. It looks like nobody forgot about anything. And tonight it feels like we never went away.
I'm glad so I don't have to answer when's it coming back on. I was going to get a T-shirt. September 15th, don't ask me anymore. So I'm happy that it's finally on. People are going to get the Jones in for it, and they're going to get what they want. They won't be disappointed.
The premiere attracted 13.4 million viewers. The big audience marked the first time a premium cable show beat all the competition on traditional broadcast networks.
I'm surprised as many people came back for the start of 4th season as they did. It shows you how much they loved the show in spite of the fact that they got very frustrated waiting for it.
The following month, 3 cast members headed for the lights of Broadway. Jamie Lynn Sigler starred as Belle in Beauty and the Beast.
It's a breath of fresh air to me, come off the Soprano set and be doing something like this. And I love live theater because the audience is right there and you can watch them enjoy the show. You entertain people, and there's nothing like it.
Then, Lorraine Bracco bared all when she debuted as Mrs. Robinson in a stage version of The Graduate. Bracco sought advice from Edie Falco, who had a nude scene in her production of Frankie and Johnny in the Claire de Lune.
We talked. She was so kind and, so confident that I would do well and that could do it. And the nude thing is, it's just really, it ended up for me being the easiest part of the whole thing. I was stunned. I'm more panicked about knowing what door to get out of and that I don't miss a cue. I just have to be careful not to laugh.
Soon after Falco left Frankie and Johnny, her Sopranos co-star Joe Pantoliano joined the Broadway cast. The actor also dropped trout.
Joey No Pants now, apparently, is what they're calling. Well, he was naked in the 4th season. I mean, he was showing you his ass. He was showing you everything, ultimately. So there's not that much, left that we hadn't seen. I was cheeky in every sense of the word.
James Gandolfini had nothing to hide either. On October 16, 2002, a spokesman for the 41-year-old actor responded to the tabloid reports about his substance abuse. Publicist Dan Cloris admitted that Gandolfini once battled cocaine and alcohol addiction, but insisted the actor had been clean for years.
He tried to sweep this under the rug as quickly as possible and to not give merit to any of the accusations, and thus they settled it very quickly.
1 month later, Gandolfini went to divorce court with his estranged wife, Marcy. The couple quickly reached a confidential settlement, and Gandolfini avoided a nasty trial.
It's been reported that he settled it for millions of dollars, and it was probably in his best interest because the public attention that he was getting was so negative. It was probably in his best interest to just put this thing to bed.
Meanwhile, fans of The Sopranos were not thrilled with the series.
Season 4 was probably the most criticized of any of the seasons. A lot of people were really disappointed.
Where's the violence? The violence that had been criticized in the earlier seasons. They were looking for more drama. They were looking for more sex. They were looking just for more excitement.
Ultimately, what it was about was the relationship between Tony and Carmela.
A lot of people watch the show because they want to see somebody get whacked, they want to see somebody get beat up, and the fourth season did not have a lot of violence, and so they were disappointed.
Even those who appreciated the brutal murder of Ralphie found other objections to season 4.
There were some pacing problems, some stories went on too long, but I think they really made up for it with that last episode where Tony and Carmela split up, because that features two of the best performances I've seen anywhere in movies or TV or on the stage, and that was just incredible.
Critics celebrated the heart-wrenching drama of the season finale in December 2002, but some fans felt gypped.
A lot of people found the season finale unsatisfying. There was a lot of talk. You know, one of the fun things about watching The Sopranos is to guess, oh, who's going to get whacked next? No one got whacked in the season finale.
That's the way it goes. I mean, even mobsters aren't killing people every day, I don't think.
When the TV mobsters were not committing murder, others were, and some claimed The Sopranos was their inspiration. Coming up.
It's unfortunate, though, that someone will take something from a TV show and then try and copycat it.
Are our SUVs as much fun as our bikes?
You think you can handle it?
Can you? Introducing the all-new Suzuki XL7 midsize crossover SUV. It's going to be a great ride. Get 0% financing with no payments till July.
Can your sleek hair weather the weather? Garnier Fructis Sleek and Shine Leave-In Conditioner. The fortifying system with fruit micro-oils makes hair 5 times stronger and 5 times smoother with all-day frizz control. Garnier Fructis Sleek and Shine. Garnier.
Your smile says that you're happy, confident. But if you're uncomfortable with your teeth, your smile could be saying just the opposite. Fortunately, there's Invisalign, the clear alternative to braces that's comfortable and removable for eating and brushing. Straighten your teeth little by little until a new smile emerges. Join the millions at Invisalign.com and arrange a free, no-obligation consultation with an experienced Invisalign provider. And let the world see the real you. Invisalign. Learn how to smile again.
Imagine knowing you're pregnant the moment it happens. Science is getting close. They found a hormone variant that better predicts early pregnancy. First Response detects it. It tells you 5 days before your missed period. First Response, discovering ways to tell you first.
I'm Joel McHale from The Soup, a show People magazine has given 3 out of 4 stars for our coverage of celebrity news, reality television, and all things pop culture. I don't know what we have to do to get that 4th star, so let's start with threats of shaving this chihuahua.
Watch The Soup, 3/4 of the way to People magazine's definition of perfect. Fridays at 10 on E!
Give me that 4th star, People magazine, before I shave something you do care about. Get in here, Katie Couric.
Susan?
Honey?
It's the extra creamy ice cream you don't have to feel guilty about. Double churn from Breyers. Our light ice cream never tasted so good.
Sweetie, this meal was so good. That salmon was cooked perfectly. Is that clogged again?
chocolate-dipped Altoids. Curious?
The girls and guys of Vegas have been on a wild ride, but nothing lasts forever, even in paradise. Don't miss the season finale of Paradise City, Sunday at 10:30 on E!
Despite rumblings from fans about an unsatisfying fourth season, The Sopranos was still a ratings winner. Season 4's final episode attracted 12.5 million viewers, making it the second most watched show in HBO history. But The Sopranos' impact on society came under attack. On January 19, 2003, the cast of The Sopranos attended the Golden Globes. The show received 3 nominations, bringing its total to 17 in 4 seasons. At the ceremony, Edie Falco won for Best Actress in a TV Drama.
I'm not good at guessing these things, so I was very surprised.
Just 8 days later, The Sopranos got a heavy dose of reality. On January 27th, 2 Orange County teens admitted to killing their mother and trying to cover their tracks by chopping off her head and hands. The duo claimed they learned the technique from The Sopranos episode featuring the gruesome murder of Ralphie. Both brothers were convicted and sentenced to prison terms. HBO didn't release a statement in response to the murder, but the network showed its support for the series and the cast with pay increases.
We're going to see season 5, that much we know.
But when filming resumed, producer David Chase announced a surprise.
We've signed for a 6th season.
We just heard that today.
Yes.
How does that feel?
Good. I love it.
That summer, the TV gangsters had a real bash to celebrate. On July 11, 2003, 22-year-old Jamie Lynn Sigler wed her 32-year-old manager, A.J. Descala. In September, the annual Emmy Awards brought mixed blessings. Despite 3 previous nominations without a win, The Sopranos again lost the coveted drama series honors to perennial favorite, The West Wing. Pantoliano, Falco, and Gandolfini won acting Emmys, but James was openly frustrated.
My work has been acknowledged already, and it's time for everyone else's work to be acknowledged, and I wish that had happened.
Offstage, Gandolfini's love life made news. In January of 2004, he announced his engagement to former director's assistant, Laura Somoza. No wedding date was given. Then in September, the family finally did it. At the 2004 Emmy Awards ceremony, Michael Imperioli and Dre DiMatteo won supporting honors, and The Sopranos captured the drama series prize.
I was so excited. I said, I'm going tonight. I'm coming out here because we're going to win. And if we don't, there's going to be bloodshed.
The celebration did not continue for James Gandolfini. In early 2005, the actor and his fiancée, Laura Somoza, ended their engagement. There was better news in May. HBO announced that 8 more episodes of The Sopranos would be produced after season 6. Cast members were elated.
This show gave me a lot, personally, professionally. I'm forever indebted to it and grateful for it, and so I will always be there for the show.
Meanwhile, Jamie Lynn's 2-year marriage crumbled. In September 2005, she split with husband A.J. Descala for good. The following March, 21 months after their last show aired, The Sopranos Season 6 premiered with a bang.
That's true. You got 2 words, dark and sad. Woohoo!
A lot of surprises tonight. Bada bing.
In fact, the first episode ended with a shocker. Tony Soprano got hit.
It's juicy. It's good stuff.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's worth the wait.
In July 2006, there were 7 more Emmy nominations.
The nominations in the drama series category are The Sopranos.
The cast also began filming their last 8 episodes.
But yes, it is winding down. It's going to be quite bittersweet, but it's been a fun ride.
What's next for TV's favorite Goomba gang? Year after year, this series went to sleep with the fishes, then came back to life. Executive producer David Chase says he may revive The Sopranos again on the big screen.
I hope he does a movie. Convince him. Tell him to do a movie.
I mean, I think about it fairly often, but I haven't come to any conclusions, really.
In the meantime, this is one mob family that refuses to get whacked.
Tony Soprano takes matters into his own hands, and he's a outlaw, you know? And there's something sexy about that.
They've raised the bar, period.
What do you think, I'm a clown?
No.
I amuse you?
No.
What are you, a wise ass?
No.
Just want to make sure you're not no Dr. Donnie Brasco on me.
No, I'm not. No one would ever know.
It's about making money. We're all about business, right? Why can't we just work in this together, all right?
Let's go back to the casino.
Oh, we don't want to leave yet. I mean, it's comfy in here.
Oh, I think that you're just very sexy when you're counting all that money.
You're in my club now, Bob. We're going to talk about that in a minute.
Guy's a moron. I'll make him an offer he can't confuse. Don't worry about it.
I got it. Get the fuck out of here. What do you got? Take it. I got this. Oh, get the out.
Hollywood, the stars, the magic, the murder. For the next 2 hours, we'll retrace the most horrifying murders that helped make this town infamous. Crime scenes, forensic experts, celebrity friends.
Choked her unconscious, banged her head on the floor.
And perhaps the most chilling, the killers themselves.
You people just don't understand.
Jesus.
What really happened may surprise you.